having to go, oh, good morning, having to go handheld today because I still got everything out in the Tarbis. And I left all the equipment out there, and I'm like, oh, it's too early. Oh, slowly, slowly. Ooh, woo. Houston, the Eagle has landed. Oh, okay. Um, don't know what that was, but sounded expensive. I don't know if you heard that. It's kind of a weird crashing noise. Anyway, not my house. Um, I was wondering last night as I was leaving the shed after doing Max's Models After Dark episode 1. Yeah, something about Max's Model, The Shed After Dark has kind of a sound to it. Um, so, what is the biggest, the physically largest kit model you've ever built? I'm not really counting RCs because they're kind of big by nature. Um, I think mine might be the 148 scale Monogram B17, and of course the 112 Atomic City MRC Mercury. I talked about I wanted to get some bigger barbs. All these models I wanted, like 132nd scale stuff, and I'd love to have gotten that 132nd scale Lancaster that Wingnut Wings was going to put out. But I'm like, I literally have no idea where I'd put the thing once it was done. And I imagine storage is an issue. But, there was actually kind of a scale war. I think I touched on this on one of my videos. But there was actually a kind of a scale war back in the, I guess, the late 50s, early 60s when the industry was pretty young. And as I imagine all you guys know, back in those days, models were often made to fit a standard size box because, the industry was new. There weren't really any rules. They were learning as they went. So the general idea is let's make this one box and then we'll just make models to fit it. So you might get a biplane from World War One, that'd be 148 scale, and helicopter that might be 1 to 40 scale, a bomber from the Second World War that was like 1 to 160 scale. They were kind of all over the board, and the but when the scales kind of started to normalize, one scales like 1 to 40 and 1 to 160 started becoming a lot less common. Now the Japanese, I believe, wanted 1 to 40 for the aircraft and 1 to 50 for the tanks. I think that was kind of where they were more kind of falling into. 1 to 50 seemed to be kind of popular in various places, but I believe the Russians, though, they wanted to do their armor in 1 to 30. And the Americans, of course, were bouncing around like everybody else, but on aircraft, 1 to 48 started becoming the big, at least single engine airplane, like World War One, World War II fighter type scale. And there was a real tug of war. Everybody's kind of going for dominance. And even in the US, 1 to 40 was still popular. And that little Hobby Life like helicopter I got, the CH1, is a 1 to 40. And originally the Adams kit, the missile carrier. And it's actually a really nice scale. The pilots are big enough that you can detail them a little bit, but it's a little bit bigger than 1 to 48, but it's not like hog the shelf big. I actually found it a really nice scale. Part of me is kind of like, man, I kind of wish 1 to 40 had become the standard. But the 1 to 30, 1 to 50, and 1 to 40, and you can find a lot older Jap kits and Japanese kits in 1 to 50, and that's hey, did I build one or not? But anyway, in the end, 1 to 48 seemed to be the one that took the prize. Everybody eventually standardized on that. USA. But 1 to 35 has, kind of evolved into the standard armor scale, which was closer to what the Russians were making it in, but their armor kits, and I think it was, okay, Omonks. I can't remember the name of that Russian company, and I'm sure somebody will stick it in the comment sections. Sergey, if you're out there, am I right about that? It seems like I remember the most of the Russian tanks before, I guess, the 70s or 80s were made in. It seemed like they were pushing for 1 to 30 scale, but Japan kind of took that one with 1 to 35, and if what I've been able to figure out is correct, we have Tamiya to thank for that. If you watch the video I did on Tamiya, apparently their first motorized kit model plastic tank in the early 60s was a 1 to 35 scale Panther, and the reason for that wasn't because they wanted 1 to 35 scales, because they wanted to motorize it, and given the size of standard, I think it was D-cell batteries back then, or maybe C-cell, they said, and the size of the motors and everything, they were like, okay, it's got to be this big to fit the motor and the batteries in it, and poof, 135 was born. Well, that's what I've been able to decipher. If you guys have got other information, well, let us know. But back to big kits. I have seen a few people with some pictures online of people have like dedicated display rooms in their big models. Sometimes they put them up on the wall. So you're basically looking at the top of the airplane. And that's actually the way we hang our RCs, our radio control aircraft. They used to hang them that way. We would put them up, the belly against the wall, because it just saves a lot of space. Other people have massive shelves. Some people have glass. I just, as cramped as everything's getting, I don't see where I could put something that big unless I hung it from the ceiling. And that might have something to do with why 1 to 48 became such a popular scale, is because 1 to 48 has a good, it's good enough you can see a lot of detail, you can put a lot of detail in it, but it's small enough it can go on a standard shelf, you can put a lot of them up there. I can get about 6 or 7 148s on one of my little glass cabinet shelves versus about maybe 4 132nd. And of course, then there's 172nd, which is really nice because you can get so many of them, display so many of them in such a small area, and you can still get some nice detail out of them. But and of course, when you build something bigger, obviously it eats up less space. The whole 172 to 176 thing was another little tug of war. And going off the top of my head, and I might have this wrong, was it Eschi from Italy that tried to make everything in 1 to 76 or 1 to 72? But anyway, they made sure to make everything in that scale. And that was great because you could diorama and collect everything, because we all like to have our stuff to scale. And that helped them out for a long time. That was a really good idea. And I remember building both, and I'm not quite sure how 1 to 72 became dominant, but I don't know if anybody actually makes 1 to 76 now. And, I suppose 1 to 144 became popular for larger aircraft for the exact same reason. Like my Kawanishi flying boat from REI, which I believe is a former Otaki kit. It has a substantial amount of detail, but it's small enough it goes on the shelf without any problem. And can you imagine something like a Pan Am or a Kawanishi flying boat, a Mavis or an Emily in 1 to 32nd scale? My God, that'd almost be big enough to be radio controlled. What makes coffee better? 3 things make coffee better: more coffee, bourbon, which I don't have, and bacon, because bacon makes everything better. So if I was to get a couple of those, like that big Hobby Boss 132nd scale, or even that, if that Lank, if it ever comes out, or for that matter, even get a 148 scale Lancaster B-17, I really have absolutely no idea where I'd put it. One thing you could do, which is some might consider kind of a sin against nature, and I thought about this. If I got something big like a 1/32 scale Lancaster or B24, of course, that's big enough you can really hyper detail the inside. But instead of details on the inside where no one can see them, is uh, literally just make the fuselage half with everything in it and put it on display, kind of like the Visible Man sort of thing, you know. And but just make a display out of half of the fuselage with everything hyper detailed inside. That would fit on a shelf real easy and make a somewhat interesting display, don't you think? The first large kit I had that had all that detail on the side, on the inside, was the Monogram 148B17 I mentioned, which, by the way, is one of the only model airplanes I bought, built, and kept for any length of time while I was in the Army. I actually had it in the barracks, and it survived a surprising amount of time, given how, you know, every Friday night when guys that hit the town would come back with a belly full of beer, I was going, oh, let's go, oh, let's play with your airplane. Or was that me? Well, anyway, guys, once again, thanks for watching. And if you got any ideas about what to do with these big airplanes when you run out of space, or why certain scales became dominant, I'd like to hear your theories. So you guys have a great day, and we'll see you later.